Antonil Tuli and Meldanine, and thank you once again for joining me. My name is Lord Aramil, and today we will be talking about a couple different things. I just wanted to, get a couple of these ideas out there into the internet and really see what you guys had to say about them. But first, I want to talk about, very briefly, the video that went live yesterday at this time. The Warrior Study Episode 1, What is Dagger Hair? And etc. etc. And I gotta say, it did so much better than I could have anticipated. Right now, we are sitting at 27 views, uh, which is about 10 times my average view count per video. Like, I expected it to have, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 even. Just as people who, sent me pictures to use in it came in and checked it out or what have you. But this is more than I was expecting, and I'm really excited about it. And I mean, I'm probably just helps that uh, it's been almost a year now without any DAG, so everybody is just hungering for any Dagger Hair content that they can get their hands on. So maybe, maybe not. But rest assured, there will definitely be more of those videos. Um, I will be working hard to figure out how best to use this new editing software, which is called DaVinci DaVinci Resolve. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. So it's very professional, very much more than what I was expecting, and just slightly worrying because of it. So there will be an adjustment period. That's definitely what's happening right now. Tea. So yes, this is my first cup of tea also, so bear with me. Now, today's topic, we're talking about site-based adventures and how to mess with your players. Because I feel like both of these are very important. Good morning, Claren. It's my mint tea, as per usual. Occasionally I'll get in some chai tea, but this is my morning ritual nowadays. Get breakfast, get tea, good to go. But I saved my tea so that all the caffeine goodness would be coming to the forefront now during the stream. But what do I mean by site-based adventures? Now, what I'm getting at for this is if you will think back to or imagine Star Trek, the original series. I think that's the best site-based show that I could think of, or at least the one that I thought of this morning, where it's a lot of just go to a new place, do a new thing, then leave, and next time, next episode, next session, whatever, it's something new. There isn't a whole lot of crossover too, but not a whole lot of lasting repercussions from a previous episode and or session or arc or whatever. And that's what I've been doing more or less with my Monday campaign. So the characters are hopping from sphere to sphere, and they just have no great connection to any one sphere. They have connections in their fleet of sphere hopping ships, which is good, and we'll bring that back around in a minute. But it's a light-hearted and story light type of campaign. And this is good if you have a lot of unconnected ideas. So if you're a DM who, like me, to be honest, is better at, short little like, oh, this is cool, I want to show this, um, rather than I have this overarching storyline that must be told. Because unfortunately, I'm much better at coming up with an interesting place or encounter or the like than I am at, say, storytelling. Ironically enough, as I regale you with stories. But you get the idea, is that people will go to a place, they'll do the thing, and then next time they'll go to another place and they'll do something completely different. You you want to have an overarching goal. So for my characters, it's that they work for the mercantile house Cannith, and they want to continue to explore new places, find new resources, find new methods of magic or what have you, and if a place seems particularly valuable, they want to ingratiate themselves to the local power structure enough to have the permission to build an enclave. Good morning, Chris. Good to see you as well. Cheers. And across all of these adventures, naturally, my players become more powerful because they're player characters doing player character things and earning experience points. And they're also gaining kind of clout, political capital, as it were, in and amongst the fleet. So when they began, yeah, you can't exactly call in any favors. But now, well, you could, say, request a meeting with the fleet commander, and he'll get back to you when his schedule allows. Or maybe, we go over to that ship that has all the artificers on it and say, like, hey, I need a thing. And specifically, I need this thing to do this thing, etc. Whatever. You get the idea. It's just, at this point, it's like, hey, those experimental mech suits? How about I take one for a test drive? Get some of that nice field testing in. Yeah, it's important. It's very important that I get some field testing in. Don't worry, we'll have our artificer here taking notes. Yeah, we got this. I'm entertained and kind of looking forward to watching them just absolutely wreck an exosuit. And then explain that to the engineers. Anyways. So that's my idea of site-based adventures. You get, you have a home base of some kind, generally one that moves. A mobile home base. Mobile home, base. Now, for my characters, it's a small flotilla of airships. For yours, it might be a single airship or large ship of some kind. Basically, you want it to be a larger ship, or vehicle. That way, you can have a greater variety of people. You don't want to get beyond the size of, was it Thorpe? I think Thorpe, Hamlet. Um, don't make it into like a town. It shouldn't be like a full mobile town. I see what you're doing there, Claren. There are consequences, I promise. Um, Not that your barbarian cares about those. But anyways, the idea is that it shouldn't be a necessarily self-sufficient force. You Because there's always that fun adventure of like, hey, we need to restock quickly, and we're out in the middle of nowhere. So, go and find food, or you get the idea. Um, Restocking missions are valid. Don't forget that. And even if you don't have the player characters, you know, doing the restocking, it can be important for flavor. It's just like, hey, we're running low on supplies, so we're going to dock over at this nearby city. And then the players can adventure in those cities. You get the idea. This also leads itself nicely to downtime between adventures. Now, currently, I'm I'm experimenting with how the players and characters deal with kind of an endurance challenge. And they're doing really well. I think we're almost 80 turns into a prolonged combat. Mind you, they did have a couple minutes of downtime even then. Uh, but I am mildly impressed, and I mean, it's kind of what I expected. Uh, the barbarian cleaves through what, five, usually about 4 to 5 undead per turn. Uh, Fireballs got chucked. Uh, you get the idea. So dealing with an undead horde, cool. But I think it's really been nice to sink home that idea that, this is a horde of undead that is unending and deal with. I've got really off topic. Yeah, downtime. So, let's see here. Downtime is easy enough to acquire when your whole, mobile base is the thing that's going from adventure to adventure. Because depending on how the base moves, you could have weeks of downtime even. If it's an actual like sailing ship, I mean, faster than walking, yes, but you could still spend a month at sea without anything adventurous happening. Uh, One idea I had was for a not not quite tanks, but a caravan. Imagine a caravan of dozens of carts or wagons or what have you. That would be a perfectly reasonable mobile base. You could even have kind of a D&D Oregon Trail, actually. That'd be pretty cool. Um, I have to keep that in mind. That is an interesting concept, actually. You have died of dysentery. Uh, but you get the idea. Is that there's plenty of time for characters to rest, heal, maybe even train a skill or use those. In 3.5, you'd have craft and profession. In 5th ed, I think you get maybe a tool proficiency using that stuff, your background stuff. I'll admit I'm not as familiar with fifth ed yet. I'm learning. I am learning about fifth ed. I promise. Um, More to just be able to speak with a greater variety, but you get the idea. Oh, so and this downtime is valuable. It's good for role playing, if nothing else. I mean, if you could say like, "Hey, all right, you guys are gonna have a few days of downtime. What does your character do?" And honestly, you your players have to come up with something. All right, you be insistent on that, if nothing else. All right, nobody does nothing for a week, literally nothing. All right, that's mind-numbingly boring. And honestly, everybody else is going to notice that, you know, this one character is not doing anything, and he's going to be shunned pretty quickly while everyone else is pulling their weight. Like, yeah, it's great that, he can kill goblins with a quickness, but, yeah, once, working once a month is kind of, not gonna work out here. But you get the idea. Um, hmm. I continue to kind of wander and meander roughly on target, so I hope you guys are okay with that. Hmm. Okay. Now, the this is the whole thing in opposition to a larger storyline type campaign where you are building up to a definitive climax and epilogue and whatever. And this actually is pretty good if you have no idea how long a campaign will go. Uh, for me, I have no idea. I really have no idea how long this campaign will last. And that's okay. Because as long as the characters are having fun, it doesn't much matter, right? So, that's that's the big thing is keep your players happy, and if a if you notice that your characters are starting to get bored with the campaign, or you get the idea, then maybe it's time to wrap it up with something a bit more climactic. A miniature arc could escalate. And sometimes that's all you need, really, to reignite that fire, is a slightly longer arc. We're actually we are in the midst of an arc, taking break from a larger arc, uh, which is ironic to think about to begin with. Oof. And I mean, I'd almost forgotten about the other arc now, and probably the same can be said for my players, which is in a way good. We've definitely taken a break from it, but definitely need to go back and reread some of those notes. Yeah, exactly, Clarence. Um, yeah, those people who stole your shit are still out there, even though you recovered some of it. Oh, sorry. I'm tired and just mentally exhausted. I think everybody has had such a week that it's kind of nice to just sit back and talk about D&D stuff. Um, which is why I won't be talking about politics pretty much at all on this channel. Because there are a lot of other channels that have delved into this much better than I could have. So, yeah, D&D. D&D and nerd shit. It's only been war for so long. Yeah, I guess it's we've we've been in this one battle for what, 3 sessions now? I think. The okay, fine. Combat takes a long time. And 80 rounds of combat takes a long time. So that's definitely something that we'll have to wrap up sooner than I planned. Monday will be week 4. Yeah, that sounds about right. And to think this is the first battle of a prolonged war. Yeah. That being said, I think we'll move on to our second point for today. We're at about the 20-minute mark. So, properly messing with your players. Now, this is yes. So messing with your players. There are a lot of ways to mess with one's players, naturally, and because I'm, putting this on the internet, I'll mainly be drawing from ways that I have previously messed with my players, because at least one of my players is currently in the chat, losing her shit. But here are a few different ways that I enjoy messing with my players. The first I'm going to say is almost hereditary. Um, I in I learned it from my father. I'll say that. And it's a way that he messed with us. Okay, so I've been through this. It's okay. I understand. Uh, it's for dungeon delving. Okay, you're in a dungeon. You find a heavy door, probably banded in metal, and it's fortified. It really looks fortified. Maybe it has like 3 locks on it, something crazy like that. Now, for our characters, we were very cautious. We were always very cautious. Um, so, you'd search the door, you'd search around the door, you'd search like the locks, and slowly, pick the lock, disable device, because each one of those locks had a trap. Uh, disable all those traps, pick the locks, open the door, and it's a broom closet with a mop bucket, 2 brooms, and some unknown powder that actually is soap. The fortified broom closet, which came about not once, but enough to be a trope, is perhaps the best way to use the meta thought of if something is well guarded, it is worth guarding against the player. So, not always, if you are going through opposition, will you find reward. We waste so much time on those goddamn doors. Rage. So that's one way of messing with a player. That's fine. The second comes partially from Undermountain. Now, in Undermountain, there is a need to cross a crevasse. It's pretty early on. It's in the first layer. Now, the problem is wait. No, they were shitty brooms. Hello, Ross. Yeah. They were brooms, completely non-magical that were, in a closet for a few hundred years. They were, I might have been able to magically repair them. Yes, the bridge. The bridge, Claren. The bridge, should have taken 20 minutes, 30 if the combat was extended, maybe 35 if the characters were extremely thorough. Instead, it took an entire session. I want to say 3 hours, not including the combat. So what it is if you'll imagine 3 very thick ropes, all right, spanning a chasm, with, one rope as kind of like something to stand on and 2 ropes to hold on to. Okay, and occasionally you'd get ropes going down the side, kind of making a V. It's like a DC 10 balance check. Not hard, right? Wrong. When 2 out of the 4 characters are, no, excuse me, 5 characters, sorry. When 2 out of 5 characters are heavily armored, there's an issue. Because if they took 10, the DC to cross, they would end up with like a 2 or a 4. Because they have no ranks in balance, but heavy armor is dragging them down. What's even better is that there are a pair of dark mantles up above, just waiting for one of them to start crossing. Ha ha ha. So one of the characters got jumped by dark mantles, and they managed to, I think they killed one and scared the other away eventually. But that's not all. Because if you we're crossing a crevasse, and the book says that there's loot down at the bottom of the crevasse. Okay, that's cool. And it mentions that it's hidden in the darkness. Okay, fine, whatever. But the crevasse is only like 20 feet deep. What? So how can something be hidden in the darkness in the middle of like an open crevasse, within the bright illumination radius of a torch? It didn't make any sense to me. So I improvised. I decided that about 10 feet down, there was an illusion. Pitch black. Darkness. No idea what's on the other side. No idea how deep it is or whatever. But you cannot see past this. So it just looks like it goes down. Magical darkness, but only like yay much. So you can't see the bottom. So you assume that the bottom is just out of sight. And one of the characters took a coin, probably copper or something, cast light on it, and flipped down. It was like, you cannot see the light. Oh, shit. Now, luckily, they did figure out that that clinking sound definitely happened pretty quick. So they tied off one of the characters and tied it to one of the pillars of stone that the actual bridge is attached to. And, this character went to the bottom. and almost immediately got to the bottom. I'm like, hey guys, I know we're level 3, but you could probably fall and not die except for the wizard. I'm like, oh, okay. So they all, well, most of them get down there. They search around a bit. This is about the time that the Dark Mantles attack because they had split the party. Uh, the rogue going across the bridge, most of the party going down, and the wizard just kind of standing there in the back, hoping that nothing comes up from behind them. Uh, let's see. So the rogue manages to get the dark mantle that's bothering him to bugger off. The wizard gets attacked by the second dark mantle, gets wrapped up, but manages to huck herself off the edge to where the other characters are waiting. And to his credit, the cleric managed to catch the wizard, which probably saved her life. And they managed to just lynch this dark mantle, basically, that had entrapped the wizard, without killing the wizard, shockingly enough. So now the wizard has a dark mantle corpse that she plans to, yeah, uh, that she will turn into like a cape or something at some point. Um, so that's funny. But my point to go along with this is that the characters they're down in the crevasse. Eventually, all of them rejoin them down in the crevasse. They find the bodies, previous adventurers who didn't fare quite as well against dark mantles. They thoroughly explore the crevasse, to their credit. They don't find anything of great interest, even though I hid something in the crevasse that would be of kind of interest, but not really. It was more to just Undermountain has a lot of weird dead ends, and I don't like it, so sometimes I'll just connect a couple things via secret passage, but really it's inconsequential. So yeah, you got a 99% on that. Sorry. But then they go back up. All right. They're staring at the rope bridge, and they decide what would be smartest is if they daisy chained themselves, so everybody tied together and then crossed. This was great for about 10 feet, and then the first of the heavily armored figures falls. Yes, so their fighter rogue in plate mail uh, fell off of the bridge. And suddenly, the gnome scout druid, the half elf war mage, the Sharkim wizard, and finally the heavily armored cleric pulling up the rear now all have to try to halt the momentum of a full plate fighter. I want to say that at least one other character also managed to fall off the edge before they were able to actually just halt this momentum and start dragging them back up. Eventually, they managed. Yeah, Aster, the gnome, was just dangling in midair, and uh, the poor fighter was just like maybe 5 feet above the floor of the cavern. It's like, oh, oh. Right. Um, hello. Gets dragged back up. So it took easily an hour, for them all to eventually cross the bridge. Because they were all tied off. So they had one heavily armored figure on one end and one on the other. Okay? So you had to. Uh, this one had to succeed on his check before anybody in the middle could go. And if this one didn't succeed on his, uh, this guy could probably go ahead, continue, but you can understand how it kind of accordioned, and more than once everybody had to stop because one of these two hadn't succeeded on his check, and now all of them were stuck. And I, at one point, I just wanted to yell, just drop down, all right, rappel down, go to the far side, tie a rope up, and then hoist the bloody character up that side. Honestly, so what I would have done is I would have had the fighter and the cleric go down one end, go across, and have the three who could actually make the check just zip across, tie off another rope, drop it down, and either have them climb or hoist them up. Um, it was it was amazing in its ability to be a deterrent. I never thought that a DC 10 balance check would be so detrimental to a party, but here we were, and it was absolutely hilarious. Um, so to continue on with that, I will. Yes, you were very persistent, especially when you shouldn't have been. Uh, but that does remind me of a time where I basically did a TPK. All because of a a DC 10 jump check. Now, what it was very simple, really. Uh, there was a shiny object in a crypt. Okay, well, I shouldn't even. Well, yeah, a crypt. It's basically like a room full of coffins. All right. The coffins are assumed to be occupied by dead bodies, but I don't think that was ever really worried about. So there's a shiny object on the far wall. There are there's like stacked up coffins between the entrance and that wall. Okay, to get on top of the coffins was just a DC 10 climb or jump check. So the first character manages to leap up and goes to grab the shiny thing, uh, which provoked an attack of opportunity from the ghoul who was just there waiting for some idiot to come along and try and take the shiny. Um, the ghoul, I think it wasn't even a critical, but it, it hit, and the character critically botched the fortitude save to resist paralysis. Falls to the ground. Yeah. Uh, I'm trying to remember exactly how it went about because it did happen a while ago. But basically, One other character managed to get on top of the crates after this guest, Ghoul, had basically taken the first player out of commission. Uh, then they are paralyzed almost immediately. It's not a high DC, mind you. It's like a DC 12. Okay? They should not have. The amount of failures that occurred in this fight just were unholy. Okay? And finally, the third player, the one who should have probably done best in this combat. Okay. Could not jump up on top of these crates, or whatever, for the life of her. And eventually, after the other two had been basically taken out, she leaps up, finally succeeding. Okay. Gets up there, sees that her companions have already fallen, said, maybe you can keep this. And goes to make a parting shot with her long rifle. Alright, at point blank. I believe critically fails, shoots one of the other players. The Ghoul gets an attack of opportunity because he just fired while in melee. And hits. That player fails the fortitude save. And that's it. GG. All three of you died to a ghoul and a stack of coffins. I don't know if that's messing with the players so much as a hilariously infuriating fight, but that's what you get, I guess. Oh. Now, we will perhaps finish up today's with something a bit more lighthearted. I like to think about how comprehend language and tongues, these spells, work and how they will, in some ways, not work. Because, as mentioned, one of my campaigns is this big site-based adventure where they go out and they meet new cultures regularly, and rarely will they have time to actually learn the language. So they rely on, first comprehend language, and then, now that they're moderately high level, tongue spells. So, what are the downsides? Why would anybody bother to learn a language if these magics are available? Well, a couple real good reasons, I feel. One, if you are talking to a gnome, a dwarf, and an elf, and you have tongues on you, each one of those people are going to hear their home language. Okay? Which, if you are trying to do anything really, but especially anything with intrigue, that's a bit of a red flag if those three characters then talk about this later. The dwarf might comment on how you were really good at speaking Dwarven, and the elf and the gnome are going to be, what? No? They were definitely speaking Elven. Wait, what? I thought they were speaking Gnomish. I was actually very surprised that you guys understood it. So on and so forth. The other issue, which might be more in the moment, is that you will look like a bad 80s dub of a movie. Your lips will not match up with I can't actually do it, but your lips will not match up with the words that you are speaking. And that can be off-putting. uh, significantly. And that's not even an intrigue. That's just everyday life. You will definitely get an odd look or two. Yeah, old samurai films. Yeah, exactly. You get the idea. Just could be at best off-putting, if not just outrightly weird. And who knows? The culture you're at might not look highly on magic. That'll be weird. You get the idea. But one thing that I haven't gotten to use lately is I'm going to call it approximations. Some things don't translate well, and other things will translate too well. So and this isn't necessarily for tongues and comprehend languages alone, this could be just any language really. But you could have something that a character or something like that is speaking in an archaic form of a language. And you could just say, you know, that it's in some odd dialect. But that's not off putting enough. Uh, you could go for, Old English. Uh, Ye shall not pass this way, knave. Okay, that's a bit better. But at the same time, the players are kind of expecting that kind of nonsense because this is D&D. Old English just happens. But what's even better is if you say something along the lines of, now this isn't exactly what the character says, but the rough gist of it is, yo, that doesn't jive with me, daddy-o. And watch the players just skip a beat. Just bring out something like 60s, 70s, 80s slang, alright? That's not hip. Just something really weird, okay? Make the characters, not the characters, excuse me, the players almost uncomfortable with this nonsense. Exactly. It's just because that is how, and it's almost Tolkien-esque, okay? To explain this, Tolkien acted like he was translating uh, an ancient manuscript into English. So the Rohirrim didn't actually speak Old English. They spoke something that is, yeah. Uh, it was to Westron what Old English is to English. You get the idea. So if a character is using a dialect that has been out of fashion, because these are languages, they do evolve. Um, if a character is using a dialect that is just kind of archaic, hit the players with odd linguistics. Hit them with slang that is no longer in use. Uh, and it will make your character the players will mimic their characters in how uncomfortable they suddenly are with this conversation in a very funny way. Uh, my goal is not to make the players actually uncomfortable, but it will make them pause and reassess a lot. One being whether or not they want to keep talking to this NPC. Um, Flameo hot man. Yeah, exactly. Just weird shit. Uh, so this is these have been, I guess, several different ways to mess with your players. Um, I I I love my players. I enjoy having them every week. We have a lot of fun, but for every time uh, they abuse an NPC for their own amusement, mainly through combat. I'm looking at you, Claire, and your kneecap collection. Uh, Sometimes you just want to strike back just a little bit, just enough to make them cringe and laugh, and then cringe again. But with all that in mind, uh, thank you all for joining me today. Uh, Han Daniel Tulian Meldanin. And until we meet again, farewell.